Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Spitballing. I'm Matt Taylor here with my good buddy
Kyle Amundsen.
And today we have Pete Charpentier in the house. How you doing, Pete?
Gentlemen, I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to sitting down with the two of you geniuses for quite some time now.
Oh, you've never seen the show?
No, I have actually. I may be using that term lightly,
very loosely,
lightly,
like
yeah. But yeah, it's just really I enjoy discourse with both of you in differing environments over the years, and I think that the three of us are probably going to solve all the world's problems today.
Well, you are the only person that I can think of that's ever actually asked to be on the show.
Well, who wouldn't want to be a part of these shenanigans? I don't know.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of volunteers out there.
Yeah.
Usually it takes some cajoling.
Yeah, usually we're like, well, can we pay you?
But I think it gets back to your sense of humor, which I find like Pete's sense of humor seems to be amazingly in line with my like just perfectly in line with mine pretty much. I steal about half my memes from Pete.
Yeah. So I get a good amount from you as well.
It's weird though that when Pete puts out a meme, he doesn't get in Facebook jail, and then you like copy that meme. And
I was just looking at something. I was looking at something that a group posted.
Yeah.
That was basically identical to the last thing I went to Facebook jail for, and I was like, I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, this motherfucking thing has been up for like 2 days. I put an almost identical meme up, and it intercepted it before it actually went up. I'm like, click, boom, and they didn't let me post it, and threw me in jail for a week, and restricted my account for 90 days for other shit. So yeah, it's
you are.
I'm on a list now.
You're a repeat offender.
I am.
See, the secret is that I send $7 to Zuckerberg every other Tuesday, and so he just lets me slide.
So have you ever been put in Facebook jail?
I had my account restricted once for like 3 days, and then I actually got like a week that I couldn't react to anything.
Oh, really?
Because I apparently reacted too many times to one particular site.
Oh wow.
And so I couldn't. So like I could read everything. I could post back, but I couldn't like click like or laugh or any of that stuff on it for like a week.
That's like the stupidest restriction ever.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, but I just like everybody's things, so I just like to click happy stuff.
And I never I hardly ever click like or anything on anybody's posts. I mean, every once in a while, but like I find that just a really weird thing.
Well, the one of the things that I always like to do, though, and you guys, you're local guys. I mean, when I have local friends that like post their business stuff or whatever, even if it's not something that I'm into, I like to click the like or whatever because then that gets them more exposure.
Yes,
for their business stuff. Like I had, and I'll throw this little story in, and I won't mention the people's names on this, but like I had a guy who he makes the cornhole game, right?
Oh,
and so he like screen prints or whatever these cool things on it, and he does all kinds of stuff, and he's a rather right-wing gentleman and whatever, and that's fine. But so he posted one day where he had a twins one that he'd made that was really cool, and I liked it. And then he had one that said Trump 2020 on it, and I was like, whatever, dude. And I just said, hey, that twins one is really cool. Clicked like, because I'm like, give the guy exposure. I want him to do well with his business, right? So then one of my other friends chimes in and goes, hey, you should get the Trump one for your lawn. And then the guy who made it came back and was like, I'll even give you a discount. So they're both giving me shit, right? So I look at it and I said, okay, I tell you what, if you can make me one where the hole is Trump's mouth and you can make the bags a bag of dicks, I'll totally buy it off you. I'll even pay more for it. So but again, I like to support people's businesses. So, if my like gets them more exposure on Facebook, and like, so one of my friends sees it and they're like, oh, hey, that's cool. And then, so that's kind of my motivation typically when I'm always clicking like.
Oh my God, that train's really loud. We are again at the shop today. So if, you just ignore the train. So, I was talking to a friend of mine about cornhole, and, I had just gotten done with, doing that big cooler thing that I did for Auntie and Tina over at their flower shop, and after I get done with a project, I kind of always I get a little, I don't know, kind of melancholy because like I'm done with this big project and now I just don't know what's next. And I was talking to Tharg about it, and he says, "Oh, you get PPD," and I was like, "What's that?" post-product depression, or post-project depression. I was like, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling her that I'm just kind of like not really sure what's next. And she said, "Oh, you should make some cornhole games." And I was like, "Yeah,"
Because not enough people are making those.
I kind of like. Well, I have made a bunch of them in the past, but I'm like, yeah, I kind of like watching cornhole on TV. And she's like, "There's cornhole on TV." I was like, "Yeah, I watch it all the time at the bar, which I really do. Like, it comes on ESPN or whatever's on because they're always watching sports, and I cannot watch any sports. Like it just fades over me with whatever's on. But fucking watching these cornhole players is actually pretty cool, man. They're really, really good. But it kills me because they're sponsored by Johnsonville Brats, and I am like, and it's cornhole sponsored by Johnsonville Brats, and I just like. I'm like, that was well thought out. Somebody really.
Well, Anthony Bourdain always used to say that he's a fan of meat in tube form, and I have sort of taken that on in my own life because there's just no better way to describe it, in my opinion.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say one more thing about Facebook jail.
Okay.
So everybody always complains about going to Facebook jail. And I try not to be that guy. As much as I'm in Facebook jail, sometimes some of those have been richly deserved. Some of them have not. There was like the 2 times I went to Facebook jail for like making fun of the Ku Klux Klan and shit like that. Sorry for bullying them. Didn't realize they were, protected like that.
Yeah, that feels like it ought to be an okay thing to do.
Right? But this time around, I actually did. I could understand why they got me. Because it was insensitive. It was a picture of Moe from The Simpsons, the bartender, hanging himself, and it was when you try to kill yourself, but you've built up an immunity to strangulation from all the rough sex over the years, and I was like, I thought it was funny. I'm also, when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, that could also like kind of bring up some touchy shit for people, like that could potentially like, really bother someone.
You mean like people who are like really into in excess?
Yeah. Michael Hutchins is really disappointed in you right now.
Or I was thinking people that had sex with me that just found the whole experience disappointing, which is almost all of them. But I'm like, man, if you had a loved one that hung themselves, then this is not really cool to say, So I'm like, okay, you got me, or maybe they could have just said no and then let me go, but instead of no and putting me in Facebook jail, but whatever. This time around, it was my bad. I deserve that week off.
And now we're going to get canceled because you explained the meme. So I have an auto asphyxiation story, autoerotic asphyxiation story.
I'm pretty sure we all have autoerotic asphyxiation.
I don't know. I don't know if that's really okay. So I'm always fucked up from jiu-jitsu or whatever, and I like my neck's been bad for years now. And one of my buddies, Jay Gould, super tough black belt, he also has a fucked up neck, and he was telling me about he got this neck stretcher, and it like you put it on and it stretches your neck out and like pulls your vertebrae apart. So I bought one on Amazon, and it was just a cheap version, and it basically looks like one of those collars you'd put on for if you have what is that called, whiplash, right? But it's like a blow up thing. Right. And you Velcro it on, and then you have this little pump and you blow it up, and it like expands and expands and expands. And then, it really pops your neck out, and it feels, well, it's painful, but it helps. So I was really fucking hurting one night, and I go take a hot bath and Epsom salt, and I fucking, decide I'm going to like stretch the shit out of my neck, and I fucking get that on. I'm still buck ass naked, by the way, just because. Haven't got around to putting clothes on yet. Get that thing on, and I fucking just cranking it up, and I fucking choke myself out. I choked myself out. I passed out, okay, with this thing on, and I think it must have had a small leak because
you didn't die.
Because I didn't die, but I was like, when I kind of came back, I was like, oh fucking A, this would be the most embarrassing thing in the world, because nobody would believe I wasn't jacking off, right? Like nobody would.
No,
believe
you
it.
were just naked, stretching your neck out.
Right. I mean, Logan or Peyton, it was probably been Peyton, when it comes into my bedroom finally when he realizes that it stinks. Which, man, I don't know how many days that would have taken.
There's not enough therapy in the fucking world for that.
Exactly. I was like, oh god. So yeah. And the sucky part, I didn't even get to jack off during it.
Right?
It was like, what a bummer.
bitch.
Yeah, that sucks. Okay, so I was thinking about we should come up with a game where we.
Is this related to autoerotic asphyxiation?
Well, it was
Strangest
just
segue
it was
ever.
it was just about stories. Like we should come up with a game where we like put or even maybe our 4 viewers could like submit suggestions, but a subject, whatever it is, like what is it, autoerotic asphyxiation? Okay, so like put that on a card, and then we go through and boom, and then we'd have to come up with a story from it, because I don't think you could stump me. I don't think you
Right?
could stump me. I think if you fucking throw a word out there, I got a story about it.
We're like on the wrong side of 40, like the stories are like all there.
Yeah.
It's all in the books,
Yeah, yeah. There's something.
Well, and I think too, given the professions that the 3 of us have been involved in throughout our lives, we've pretty well seen, I think, the entire spectrum of crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Absolutely.
Plus, had a few relationships.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lots of self-inflicted crazy.
Oh, yeah, quite a bit of that.
Yeah, so much.
Quite a bit of that. So, Pete, you are kind of known as a bit of a lib.
That is correct.
Yeah. Actually, I think I think the first time I guess I knew that, I think we were, and I don't want to talk about where I work in my day job, but we did work together in my day job for a while, and
Yes.
I remember, and we don't really try not to talk about politics at work, which of course isn't the easiest thing in the world to do, but you said you were feeling the burn.
Yes.
That was the first time I had heard that, and I liked it a lot. I thought that was kind of cool. And I actually didn't know much about Bernie Sanders at the time. This is was 2000 16? Yeah.
Yeah,
Must
sounds
have been
about right.
2016. And then I started actually kind of like looking into Bernie Sanders. That's when I first got introduced to him. So thanks for that.
Happy to help.
Yeah. So where do you put yourself in the political spectrum?
Well, generally speaking, I say that I'm a raging liberal a lot of times. Like I'm that like liberal atheist dude that everybody is afraid of. But
Are you going to come take our guns?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I see a couple over there that I've had my eye on that I was really thinking I should have for myself because I don't have any.
I'm going to radio backup.
Okay, so
But here's the thing, though. The caveat to that is that I'm also a rational, realistic human being, and I say to people all the time, I don't have all the answers. Oftentimes, the truth lies in the middle somewhere, and like there are certain things, like when it comes to housing and things like that I'm a subject matter expert, and I fucking know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And on that, I'm not going to have a whole lot of room for debate. But things where, again, I'm not a gun owner. I've never been opposed to gun ownership. I think, hunting and target shooting and all the fun things you can do with guns are great. I get a little bit kind of like weirded out when people are like, look at the cache of 400 guns that I have for the zombie apocalypse. And I'm like, okay, that kind of weirds me out. Like, I'm not saying I want to take them away. I'm just like, I don't get it, but again, it's one of those things that I always feel that I'm sort of pragmatic about things, because if you can give me a rational explanation for where you're coming from, even if I don't agree with you, I'm going to be like, I get it, it's not my thing. But so I am very left in my personal feelings and thoughts about how to approach the world, but I'm always willing to listen, and particularly on economic stuff, because that's not necessarily my area of expertise. There are some times that conservative end needs to come in to sort of tone down my desire to just make everything happen, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I don't know why this just shot in my brain, but like, do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
I don't actually. I mean, I get them periodically, but mostly I just listen to loud punk music because that's really what motivates my life.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Which maybe that's where the left stuff comes from a lot of times too.
I was thinking about something related to that the other day, and I was it was actually I think I was posting something on I was posting something on Facebook. Weird. And I was like, why did I grow up in such a tiny little like hillbilly town, you know? And why didn't I become a redneck? You know, like why did I lean left, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about like what I would credit for that. And I mean, what I came up with was like books, punk rock, and you know, there was another thing, and I was having trouble nailing down, and I already forgot about all the different options. But I was also like, well, I also kind of like to rail against shit when I was a kid, you know. Mm-hmm. And one of those things was definitely going to be like, I didn't want to be what everybody else was going to be. I didn't want to just go with the fucking herd, you know.
Yep.
But then again, that goes hand in hand with fucking books and punk rock. You know?
It does.
I mean, especially punk rock.
I actually met and had coffee with Jello Biafra once. Seriously, he spoke at my college my freshman year.
Is that the Rage Against the Machine guy?
It's Dead Kennedys.
Oh, Dead Kennedys.
Sure, I'm wearing. So Jello was speaking at Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado, where I went my freshman year. I tried to major in skiing. Apparently, that wasn't an option. But he was sponsored by the Colorado Hemp Initiative. So this was like 93, 94. So this was way prior to their marijuana stuff out there being legal, but it was definitely a part of the culture back then still. So Jello was doing his spoken word thing, and I went up afterward. There were a bunch of people in line waiting to get autographs, and all these people, and this is like hipster back then even, so there's all these people with this Dead Kennedys vinyl, right? I walked up to him with the Lard CD. Now, Lard is a band that he was in with Al Jorgensen from Ministry. And so Jello's the singer, and Ministry basically provided the industrial music background for it. So it was like hardcore punk with industrial. I mean, It was just like a melding of awesomeness. But so I'm holding that up. So Jello's like, he points at me, he goes, "You hang out for a minute." And he's like, afterwards, he's like, "Everybody wants to talk to me about the Dead Kennedys because that's what I'm known for, but nobody ever wants to talk to me about my new stuff." He's like, "Can we grab a coffee somewhere or something?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Fuck yeah.
Only fucking thing open in Durango at this time is Denny's. So I went to Denny's and had coffee with Jello Biafra.
That's really cool.
Awesome.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know a little bit of Dead Kennedys, and I'm not like, I would not by any means say that I'm a fan. But that's pretty cool that he was like interested enough in. And so what did you guys talk about?
Well, I mean, that was the thing. I mean, I was kind of fanboying out. You know, I'm like 18 years old, and I'm just like, oh, my God, it's Jello. But no, I mean, we talked about, politics of the time. So, it was like early 90s, and the end of the Bush era and into the Clinton a little bit early, and so, we were just talking. I mean, he a lot of his spoken word stuff was sort of railing against Reagan and Bush from the 80s and into the 90s, which is really, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I really respected about him.
Dead Kennedys were California Uber Alice, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because they're out of California originally. But that was kind of the thing. If you look at that, I mean, California Uber Alice was about Jerry Brown, who was a Democratic governor of California back then, and then he was gone for a while, and then he came back, I think, in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I mean, the Dead Kennedys really more anti-establishment, I think.
Yeah.
But still, when you look at Jello and what he's done lately, I mean, his new band is like the Jello Biafra and the Guantanamo Bay School of Medicine. So, and I mean, I haven't really listened to a lot of his newer stuff, but I mean, really a lot of it is sort of just anti-establishment, and, that really either end of the government, I mean, certainly one end, I believe, is a little more evil than others, but both of them are sort of corporately sponsored bullshit.
Right. Yeah. And that's one thing, like punk rock, I mean, yes, a lot of us wound up becoming progressives. Mm-hmm. Also, a lot of us wound up becoming like libertarians and shit.
Oh, those people confound me.
Me too. Although, like, I do have, like we've got, I guess libertarian is like the closest thing if we were just going to like pigeonhole like Mike Starry that we've had on the show.
Yeah.
If we were going to like assign him one of these,
He would say he's a small L libertarian.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand. I don't understand why capitalization makes a difference.
But like that, I'm always like, I don't fucking get libertarians, but I understand Mike pretty well. We talk really often, and he often makes sense to me. Now sometimes he makes sense to me, and it scares me a little bit.
Right. I think that's like something you just brought up a little bit ago, Pete, about like, even if you don't agree with somebody, as long as like they have a well-articulated argument, you're willing to engage with them. That's Mike Starry to the T. I don't always agree with Mike. And on some things I absolutely disagree with him on. But his arguments are very well articulated.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I don't have a lot of experience with the man, but he's intelligent, and
actually,
he
you guys
would.
I think you guys would get along a lot because you have a lot of similar tastes in music.
Oh, for sure. And we've come across each other on social media a little bit. I don't agree with this.
Social media is not.
Right.
It's not the place where you find out if you get along with somebody.
Well, and I'm quite certain that we've actually met in years ago past, and come across paths because, it's a small town. I know he doesn't live in Brainerd, but, we know an awful lot of the same people. And, again, I can get along with just about anybody. The people that in the libertarian piece that confounds me is, like, people who run for government jobs because they don't want government. Those are the people that I kind of look at and I go, maybe you don't get the role of government here. Like,
that's called the Ron Swanson effect, right? Did you watch Parks and Rec?
I did not.
Oh, no. My God. Fucking A. It's like a must.
Me neither.
Oh, my God. You two are ridiculous. Nick Offerman has like become a personal fucking hero of mine. I've literally read every book he's ever wrote. And I'm like...
I do know that he's married to Megan Mullally, and that they have a place in northern Minnesota that they go to once a year.
I know. I stalk him there.
Perfect.
No, I actually didn't know that they did that. Oh. I just know that, but I've read all of his books, and he's really a wonderful writer. Mm-hmm. And as a human, he's a really interesting and really great human. But his character on Parks and Rec was a libertarian who did not believe in government, who worked in the government as the Parks and Rec director, and he literally, like, his goal was essentially to like break it from the inside and let it all like fall apart. And it's a really, really well written, incredibly good show.
That kind of reminded me of the worst racist I ever met. Like, just if you talk, like, just listen to the guy talk, you think he was the biggest bigot in the world. Black best friend, Asian wife.
Right. Yeah.
But getting back to the disagreeing with folks, though, because it happens to me frequently, obviously. And what I always do when people start getting bucky with me, my go-to is to invite them to either have a coffee or a beer with me. I always say, like, I'll pay for it.
Let's actually have a conversation.
Because nobody wants to be that big of an asshole in person. And that's the thing. And the thing that I really, some of them do.
I don't know how it's going to go with Mike Starry now that I think about it.
Well, no, I actually did. I
really enjoy it.
One time I had a conversation with him on Facebook, and I admittedly, I was being an asshole. And I sort of said, hey, I'll get you a beer. And apparently he doesn't drink, which I didn't know, which is fine. I was like, and my offer still goes out, dude, let's have a coffee sometime. Because I have no problem talking to anybody. And I think it's really important to understand differing perspectives regardless of whether you agree.
I'm sure, I'm confident that you would like Mike. But Mike, let's face it, like, I've met some pretty charismatic people in my life. Mike's got fucking charisma.
Yeah, if he liked people more, he could definitely be a cult leader.
Yeah, for sure. Easily.
But, I agree with you that I really enjoy talking to people that I don't agree with.
Absolutely.
As long as they're not fucking stupid.
Well, I don't learn, like, so you don't learn nearly as much.
Yes, but when you start talking to a fucking stupid person.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I do not, and even...
Well, why would you? I don't have time for people dumber than me. I'm not that fucking smart, so I don't have anything to gain by talking to dumb people. I like to surround myself with smarter people.
And the truth is I don't even like talking to dumb people that I agree with. Like,
no,
that's tough too, or at least not talking to them. I don't, when I say talking, I mean talking to them about, important
Right.
issues. I can talk to you about.
Well, I catch I'm kind of a prick, and I like sometimes no, Kyle, really? I know damn well that I talk at people sometimes, especially like, and I don't mind being, a condescending fucking douchebag from time to time. I try not to do that shit anymore because it doesn't net you anything at the end of the day. Like that person didn't learn anything. You didn't help them with anything. You just made them dig in deeper,
Right.
And, and I know that I can be a fucking asshole. But the thing, like, when I'm talking down to somebody, I just don't want people to think, oh, you think you're so fucking smart, and I'm like, no, I don't. I just think this motherfucker is stupid as shit.
Right.
I don't ever think that I'm smart. Like, if you had to be me for a day, you'd fucking get it. Like, I'm not a very smart man. I like to surround myself with smart people, and I have access to information and shit. But like me myself, we do not trust our decision-making process here at Kyle.
but that's where I've said things to you recently about sometimes needing to assert our not so small white guy privilege when people are being raging fucking asshats and saying stupid shit that is just blatantly untrue and spreading misinformation and getting people riled up and just causing chaos. And that's the thing that really irritates the shit out of me and really has my entire life. Is like,
go back, Pete. Say what you say again about the white guy privilege.
Oh, asserting our not so small white guy privilege.
Okay, explain that to me.
So, well, Kyle is definitely a larger man than I.
Sometimes you get to say
Doesn't
stuff.
quite outweigh you by twice, but
but I'm also not a small dude. I'm like 6'1", 225, and am relatively athletic. I mean,
and I'm just an otter.
well,
My
but
otter,
also
my significant otter.
but you have some experience in throwing people around.
Oh no, I'll fuck both of you up at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. The
It's like
point
he practices this.
right? I don't practice. I'm good at either getting out of the. Well, I mean, I was a correctional worker for 10 years, so I did have some experience in having to toss humans in ways that kept me from getting hurt, basically. But it's one of those things that, to me, because being a not so small human to begin with, sometimes, this happened to me in high school a lot when I would see people picking on, weaker, smaller kids or whatever.
Okay.
It pissed me off no end. So I would insert myself, and I've never considered myself to be a tough guy, but I know I can appear to be intimidating at times.
Okay.
So I will insert myself in the middle of that and be like, don't fucking do it, jackass.
So what you're saying, inserting your not so small white guy privilege. That's what you're saying. You're saying
Yes.
like stick up for the underdog.
Precisely. Well, that's my interpretation of it, and that's certainly how I mean it. I mean, I don't want to, I'm not swinging my penis around saying I'm a white guy, I know what I'm talking about, because that has nothing to do with it. It just is the way our society is right now. I do have privilege. I have it all the time. I see it in the way that people listen when I speak and things like that. So sometimes, if I can use that to help other people, I try. I mean, a lot of what I do in my world, I believe, is related to advocacy, and I'm a big proponent of advocating for people whose voices have gone unheard for a long time. And so that's where I get fired up. And so if you notice me acting like an asshole about something, because that's not my nature. I'm really a pretty nice person and pretty laid back about the world. But if you see me acting like an asshole, it's because I think somebody's getting screwed over.
Yeah, I like that point. I've thought a lot about privilege lately, and it's something I struggle with, like understanding. And I remember when we had Ace Colley on, and we were talking about, what were we talking about? Implicit racism, I think, is kind of what our subject was, and it's like I said something to the extent that I can't understand how that feels to be, to like literally have to worry about when you're gonna get pulled over, whether or not you're gonna get shot.
Yeah. So you get it. I mean,
well, I don't think I do get it. That's the point.
No, I mean, you don't
like,
get the whole. It sounds like you get the privilege thing.
Yes, I think that's what it is.
But I mean, it's a lot more complex and dangerous to try to find out about. If you'll recall, like,
right? Yes, we've talked about
tell that
privilege
story
before
about
that.
like when I first went on my search and was like, I don't understand like the whole concept of white privilege, like I, and then because you can't just go anywhere, you can't look for this help and this information, you can't you can't just get help anywhere. Another instance popped up, although this week when it happened to me, I did not get jumped on, because I asked it in the right space, in the right group, on social media. But in the past, it happened where like I asked, I tried to join a conversation. I'm like, explain, and automatically, I mean, they probably clicked on my profile picture and decided, oh, he's fucking with us. Let's get him,
Oh, right.
And yeah, so you have to be careful, like who you ask about to explain like white privilege to you and stuff. But I definitely but it probably took me years to gain a fucking really good understanding of it, because I always had that thing in my head, in the back of my mind, that was like, I ain't grow up with no silver spoon in my mouth. I ain't got no privilege,
So I have a harder time understanding or like coming up with a good example of my white privilege, but I can't. And man, this sounds like a fucking woke ass conversation, but I do. I can.
Don't worry, it'll never go there.
I can see male privilege. I was talking with Aaron Lewis a while ago about just a situation where, and it was really nothing, but she went to the gas station and it was late and she was filling up her car and she got this, and there was this guy and she just felt uncomfortable, and it made me feel really bad. Like, first of all, who was that? Did you get his fucking license plate? Because I'm gonna, make that motherfucker feel uncomfortable. Okay, which is kind of part of my male privilege, knowing that I have the power to go over there and fuck this guy up if I need to, but also never ever being afraid of filling up my gas tank at night. Right. And that's, I think,
unless you're in a fucking horrible neighborhood.
The only time I've ever felt that way is down in Minneapolis. I mean, it's true that's the only time I've ever felt like where I'm like, oh, this is actually a little scary.
Well, and that's going to happen in any urban area that you go to,
all over the world.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. But
at the same time, if I was like a brother in a town like I grew up in, I would feel the exact same way as if it was me in a neighborhood like. Anyway, yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think everybody's kind of equally. Every outsider, is kind of equally afraid in those.
Yeah.
Well, and
now,
okay,
what do you pulled something up?
Yeah, because I posted this quote recently. It's whatever somebody's thing on Facebook. It said, "Don't assume malice, assume ignorance. Life is quieter, life is easier. The world is kinder, and you can educate. Actual malice is pretty rare, I find." And that was kind of in response to what Kyle was saying, is that if you're coming to a question from the right place and saying, I just want to be educated, and sometimes that's received poorly. I mean, I work with a population that is ethnically different than I am. Okay. Right. And so truly there are things that I don't understand about their culture and things like that. So when people are comfortable with me and they know, and some of the elders in the community that I can go to and I can say, hey, like legitimately, I don't understand what this is or what this means. Can you please explain this in a way so I can understand it and be more empathetic, sympathetic, whatever in the future? When you're in a good place, you can ask those questions. But it ultimately, we should all hope that people are coming from a place of curiosity and empathy to begin with. And so that's why I try to remind myself to not assume malice, because a lot of times I think we do that on Facebook, or a lot of people do. They just see something posted and like, you're being an asshole. I mean, well, maybe they just don't really understand the thing. And maybe that's an opportunity to have a conversation.
I think we're not, accustomed to people actually seeking to learn something. People, like, especially on social media, okay, I get it, people aren't really usually looking to learn something on social media. And I talked to John about this a little bit the other day. And he said
John Carlson.
yeah. And he said that like so few people are actually looking to better themselves on a regular basis, that they don't know what that looks like when someone else is. And I'm like, John's so fucking smart.
I know. So
really
if
is.
you guys haven't seen the episode, we had John Carlson on a while ago. I think it's called Saint John. Is the episode. But he really is like. It seems genuinely one of the like truly purely nicest fucking human beings that I've come across. And he has recently decided that he is going to put his hat in the ring for a political seat, though he's not 100% sure what the political seat will be yet because they have to wait for redistricting and some other shit. But we were, the three of us were, and with a few others, were honored enough to be asked to kind of, be on his team. He sent us a nice Facebook message saying, hey, I just have kind of gathered together the people that I think would be, interested in like, contributing to the intellectual, thrust of this campaign. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was well written because he's smart and great. And it really fucking touched me, right? Now, maybe I'm in a vulnerable place in my life and whatever. and everybody knows I cry like a bitch over anything. But I was so incredibly flattered and honored to have this guy who I really do think is a fucking great guy, think my opinion, could have any, weight. And it was great. Well, and then I actually got a chance to sit down and have lunch with him, and we had, several hour-long conversation. And I think we're fucked. Well, no, sorry. That comes from our last episode where I was all depressed.
I just
about the world dying.
I too, I was flattered. No, I don't necessarily get it. I could understand you two, but I was like, what are you going to get from me? Then I was like, oh, I know. He wants a bodyguard. Yeah. he wants somebody that'll stop a bullet. And he's not worried about getting shot in the head because that motherfucker's like 8 inches taller than me.
He is a tall gentleman, but the man is quite educated on so many. He's been a go-to for me.
And I feel like he comes from good people too and stuff. I think he's super well he's very practical and grounded, but very moral.
Well, if you guys remember a while back when things were blowing up in Palestine, right? And
that's constant.
Well, I know, but fairly recently there was an uptick in violence between Israel and Palestine, and so the Republicans came out of the woodwork for Israel over and over and over again, and I, for the life of me, could not understand why the right wing has such a hard on for Israel.
Well, it's blue steel, a cat couldn't scratch it.
But so
raging boner.
I called John.
Okay.
Because I'm like, can you explain this to me? Because I really don't get it. Why they're so excited about? Because and not to generalize, because I know there are certainly wonderful Republicans out there who are my friends and are not racist and whatever. So I'm not just settle the fuck down before I even say this. But there are a lot of right wingers who really don't like Jewish people as well.
Yeah.
So that was
like
what I was
neo-Nazis, who make up a good chunk of the Republican Party,
right?
Who make up a good majority of the Republican far right,
right? So that's
not
where I'm trying
the Republican Party.
Yeah, but so there's a segment. Anyway, that's why I was trying to throw the caveat out there. I'm not saying this is all people, but there's a chunk of folks out there who are real asshats.
So what did John say? I am
well,
curious.
He brought it back to a lot of stuff long ago, establishing a Jewish state and how basically it's this kind of right-wing ideal of it. It's almost like a religious state. Really.
It is. It is a very interesting question though, because and we are making some generalizations.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you think of a typical Jewish American, I mean, you're probably thinking of a New Yorker.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you're definitely thinking of a Democrat.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, and that is like, I mean, come on, Ira Glass. I mean, almost every podcast I listen to is
Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart. Yeah.
I'm thinking I could beat him in a fist fight. But he's got 6 Nobel Prizes.
Right. So, but I listened to they're probably one of my favorite podcasts ever. And that's a hard thing to say because I listen to a ridiculous amount of podcasts. But it's this podcast called Martyr Made, and it's a really in-depth dive into a subject. And the first entire season, which is probably in the neighborhood of 20-ish hours long, is about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And by the time I was done with it, I can tell you with complete confidence that nobody understands the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Even the guy who was doing the podcast.
Yeah, what was that? There was kind of a quote.
He said,
you paraphrased him,
yeah,
and it was
he
fucking
said,
wonderful.
After I read my 6th book on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I was just shit at a dinner party. I would talk your fucking ear off, and I could tell you every solution and every problem.
Because he
and
thought
I
he knew
exactly
everything.
what was going on. But he said, now I've completed my 60th book on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and I have no idea. I have no idea. And I'm not going to be able to tell you what the solution is, but I am going to be able to lay out to you the problem. And it is a wicked problem. It's very, very difficult. And there are no good guys, and there are no bad guys. Everybody's wrong.
Exactly the thing that I was trying to sort out in my head too is why is the right wing so excited about Israel in this? Because I've tried to examine it, and again, I don't have very limited knowledge of any of it. And from what I can see, it's just a clusterfuck, and it has been for a long time. And like you said, there really isn't there's no good solution.
Yeah, short on solutions as long as. Now, as long as religion is guiding,
as long
as you have a religious extremism.
Do you want to know what I think?
There's no
the
fucking
reason
solution.
that a portion of the right wing party is in support of Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is because it's biblical.
Oh
yeah, that's a piece of it, and they're white.
And I think that's
too.
Well, yeah, whitish. They're white enough as long as you don't dig down too deep.
Right.
And we're making some very big generalizations, yes. But there would be a sizable chunk of the far right anyway that would not consider Jewish people white.
Yeah.
They're called Nazis.
Yeah. I mean, like Matt said, they're whitish. I mean, they might be able to get a sunburn, but you want your sister to date one. That was a joke.
Yeah, no, I got that, and it was terrible, but it was also sort of humorous.
But there is some biblical, prophecy about Israel, and how, bringing on the end of times and blah,
this is some Michelle Bachmann type shit.
Also,
exactly.
Also, people hate Muslims. I mean, there's a lot of anti-Muslim sentiment in our fucking country.
I gotta tell you, this is the most horribly sound-biteable episode we've ever done. I'm just gonna cut up little chunks of it, tiles.
No shit. To be clear, I was making a joke about the people that don't consider Jewish people white. Although, you know what? I actually break down people like that. I don't consider big. Also, because I don't think white is such a group that, in my eyes, being white isn't a prize, You're not fuck yeah, I'm white. I didn't choose white supremacy. I'm white. Supremacy chose me, I don't fucking,
Another just great soundbite.
But
this is why none of us are ever running for office.
Right. You wanted us on your team, John? Good. Here we go.
But, I think it comes from that old school shit, listening to my grandfather and stuff like that. Italians, not white. Jewish people, not white. Goddamn,
the Irish
stuff. Yeah, the Irish. Yeah, I mean, that's where Grandpa would have taken issue because we were Irish. So yeah, we were fucking white.
Well, okay.
But back then, white was the thing to be or whatever, So and to a lot of people still to this day, they would break them down because they're like, because it's some like group that they were proud of being like, and I'm not proud of being like any group that I was just lucky enough to be born into, you know, except like my family. But and there's a lot more to it than just being born into it. But like it doesn't, you're not special. And that's one of the things about white supremacy. You're not fucking special because you were lucky enough to be born that way. It's also one of the things about like that's really weird for me about like nationalism and shit. I don't feel like I'm fucking better than somebody because I had the good fortune to be born in this country. You know, that doesn't make me better than some hardworking fucking guy that wants to better his family situation or to do fucking anything to fucking become a citizen.
In a lot of ways, it makes you worse.
Yeah.
I mean,
because I'm not as good as that guy.
Right.
Like by any fucking measure, like this guy could be better than me in fucking every way, but you don't want him here. You're okay with me being here. No, I'm going on my fucking immigration rant. But you know what I'm saying?
Right. God, I just got done reading another book by one of my favorite authors, Joe Abercrombie, I think is how you say his name. But he's just a fantastic writer. I got him from Martin, and I don't know. I got done reading this, and he talks about the Great Leveler in it all the time, which is basically death. You know, he talks about the Great Leveler. Where the fuck was I going with that? I was just thinking about making in many ways being born in this country is not even a well, there's one's there too. Is not even a plus sign, and it obviously is because our life is comfortable, blah 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 blah. But that's only because things are good right now in the world. But let's get hit by a meteor, and I'm telling you, you know, the people of fucking.
Like if you grew up on the fucking steppes of Mongolia,
they're gonna feel the pinch a little less than me.
Yeah,
because I can't live without GPS.
I need to go on YouTube to fucking do anything myself.
Right. So you know there is that.
Well,
guess what? This motherfucker lives in a yurt. He doesn't know what YouTube is.
Yeah. He's like, there was a meteor.
He has fermented and hardened goat milk that he eats for breakfast. So you know,
which that shit is bomb.
It sounds frightening, but I'm willing to try anything once. I have no idea. But you know, it reminds me that there's a quote that floats around Facebook periodically. It's from a TV show that Jeff Daniels is in, where this woman asks him, you know, can you explain why the United States is the greatest country ever? Yeah,
it's pretty much like the only thing we ever talked about the first like 8 episodes.
Pretty much,
yes. But you know, it's an amazing scene, and he explains. You know, he says, you know, the U.S. is not the greatest country in the world, and here's why. And he breaks it down. And one of the best lines in there is, if liberals are so fucking great, why do they lose so fucking always? You know, so fucking always. It's so great. I had this really interesting conversation at 9th Street last night. With this couple, and they identified themselves as a conservative couple, and we were talking about politics, and it was just us in the bar. And I usually don't get too deep into my political beliefs when I'm working at the bar, but fuck it, sometimes I just do. And I was saying, you know, that I consider myself, you know, pretty liberal. I have some fiscally conservative ideas, though if you look at them, most people would probably think they're liberal, but I think they're fiscally conservative, and I'm very socially liberal. And he said, "Oh, I'm kind of the opposite. I mean, I'm fiscally conservative, but socially liberal, but I definitely lean much more to the right." So we're having this interesting conversation, and he was like saying, you know, I did vote for Trump, but I'm not an idiot. I don't think I didn't think he wasn't retarded. I mean, I knew that, but I just, you know, whatever. So we're having this kind of interesting conversation, and then we were talking. I said, you know, something we do have to recognize is that more people, you know, voted for Donald Trump than voted for any other president ever, you know, except for Joe Biden.
Yep.
So it's hard to say, you know, that that nobody liked him, you know. And he's like, yeah, but did Joe Biden get more votes? And I said, oh my God.
Oh my God.
I said, wait a second. Are you? And he said, no, I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, but it does seem weird to me that, you know, this 8 million or whatever it is. I don't even know the numbers, but you know, whatever. And I said, okay, just give me 1 second here. So you think, or you're not saying this, but the only other possibility is that there was a large liberal conspiracy to get Joe Biden elected, and we were somehow able to get
all these Republicans,
or to get all these even not
Trump appointees.
But let's take the Republicans out of it. We were going to get all these liberals to agree on a way to get this done, and we were going to fake this election. I say, have you ever tried to get 3 liberals to agree to do fucking anything? It's literally like herding snakes. You can't do it. We are we're liberal, which means all over the fucking place, and we don't agree on fucking anything.
And all you have to do is ask a Republican. We're too lazy for that shit. Conspiracies take work,
and we're not that smart.
And if we would have done it, we would have made Bernie president.
Right. Okay. Right. That's the truth of it too. Is there a faction of the liberal left that would be, open to the idea of but they aren't the fucking lukewarms that were willing to put Joe Biden in. And but yeah, I just was making the point that you cannot get a group of liberals to agree on fucking anything.
No.
So having some great
Matt and I don't even agree on everything, and we haven't got that fucking hive mind thing going.
But it's that big tent thing that people like to talk about in politics, and the Republicans, as of late, have tried to advertise that they're a big tent. They're not. But that's precisely why they agree on everything. Their messaging, and they stick to it no matter what.
I keep asking you to explain things. What are you talking about? Big tent? What does that mean?
So the big tent theory is that we have we encompass this large, dynamic differing of opinions within our party,
and the liberals, I think, are kind of a big tent.
Yeah, the liberals, and that's exactly what you were saying, and
which is a problem,
right? Well, it's good, but it's hard to get people to agree.
Yes, because right,
and so the messaging,
I have very, very liberal friends that absolutely did not vote for the Democratic candidate,
right,
because they fucking thought the Democratic candidate was a joke.
Well, and Joe Biden is historically, a lot of his stuff would have ended up on the right side of thing, and I don't mean correct. I mean on the right end of the spectrum.
Yes.
He's a very middle of the road. And some progressives. And he did make some deals, I think, with Bernie's camp and stuff to move things a little bit further left in certain ways. But for the most part, he's a very middle of the road guy, and I don't even think Bernie's all that liberal. Bernie to me is a New Deal Democrat.
But you're saying on the conservative side of things, they say they're a big tent, but in truth, they're lockstep.
Correct.
Which is something about the right that I really envy, because I was having a conversation with with what I thought was a pretty fucking rational guy yesterday, who identified himself as a conservative, but really, if we would have sat down and we would have listed out issues, we probably would have agreed on 80-ish plus % of them. And we would have had minor differences on some other things. And then there was probably 2 or 3 that we would have been completely, I'm just guessing, but let's say he would say he was pro-life, and I would say I'm pro-choice. And those are just, those two will never meet. But even so, he still was willing to vote for a guy that he thought was an idiot.
Well, and that's the problem with so many of these single issue voters out there, and I think that's the issue with a lot of people. Yeah, but
that's not it's not a single issue voter in that case. That's the tiny tent problem.
Oh yeah,
which is also a really good name for a concert series.
But I think that's these wedge issues and single issues and whatever types of things you want to label them as, that started with the moral majority with Nixon in the 70s, and then just mushroomed under Reagan in the 80s, and just brought out the evangelical vote in particular and things like that where they're not even concerned about the vast majority of politics. They look at 1 or 2 issues and they're like, that's my guy, and I'm sticking with him no matter what. They're like, you know what, we're going to say that we're going to end abortion in the United States. And everybody in that faction is going, yay, yay, yay. And by the way, we're going to do all this other evil shit over here that you're not going to pay any attention to because we did the one thing that you like.
I found it really interesting. We had John Howard on the last podcast, and one of the things, and you said you really enjoyed it.
God, I had a good time. And I
you
watched
enjoyed
it.
watching it.
Yeah, I fucking really enjoyed the episode too. I'm still watching it at the gym.
I enjoyed doing the podcast. I always do. But I came off pretty angry. And
no, you didn't really when I watched it.
I watched it too, or I listened to it anyway, and I felt like I was fucking a little like I was feeling like I'm really fucking upset about this shit. And because I had just got done listening to this horrible global warming podcast, and I get to the point where I'm like, I don't but I don't want to go back down that rabbit hole yet. But we were talking about the abortion issue in Texas, and he John, who was super smart and fucking smart people, but he had done some research or whatever, and he had this he had some statistics about we're spitballing here, so I'm making numbers up, but they were all
that shit about Texas bringing up the rear in like all those significant.
No, he was talking about how this one place like essentially illegalized abortion, and they were able to reduce the abortion rate by 13%. And then this other place, New Hampshire or whatever, they funded abortion clinics, family planning, and like other birth control things, and were able to reduce the abortion rate by 28%.
Yeah, by getting ahead of it.
And essentially,
instead of being retroactive. Yeah.
Yes, essentially, criminalizing something
reactive
doesn't necessarily like cause a reduction in it. And I mean, and you could apply that to lots of different things, like
the war on drugs.
The war on drugs
excellent
is
example.
An excellent example, right? And
it sure did create a lot of violence, though.
Oh yeah, it did.
Honestly, it was just a tool to
votes.
Well, it was a tool to feed the prison industrial complex.
That's also
that is correct.
Yeah,
I used to be a part of it.
Yeah, but I thought that was an interesting point. Okay, speaking about Biden. Since we touched a little bit on Biden, I wanted to talk a little bit about like what you guys, what you've been following about Afghanistan and how you felt that shit was handled.
Oh man,
because here's what I think, and this is, we were just talking about this before about the big tent, little tent bullshit, but like, it does seem like conservatives have a really, really hard time like criticizing when other conservatives fuck up. Or if they do, it's like a complete like death nail. Like what was that? What's Dick Cheney's daughter's name? Liz Cheney,
yes.
Yeah. The one that is ultra super uber conservative, completely fucking exactly the opposite of everything I would want in a candidate.
Yeah,
and she was.
She came out against Trump.
She came out against Trump. Didn't even really come out against Trump. Just said that they should go ahead with the impeachment because it's constitutional. And they fucking lambasted her, and she's like, she's just kicked out of the.
Right. Well, that's again back to that whole lockstep in the Republican Party. Whereas I'll touch on the Afghanistan thing. Kyle's pulling up stuff, so obviously he's got things to say. But I mean, to me, it was a total shit show, and it was done terribly. And I'm not a military strategist. I don't understand those things. I don't pretend to. The people that I've spoken to who are military people, again, like we talked earlier before we started recording that the whole leaving equipment behind, that's not as big a deal as the people want to make it out to be, because that's just standard operating procedure in a lot of ways.
Right.
Again, I'm not trying to say I understand the intricacies of it. But
well, I obviously am a general.
Well, clearly. But I will say that I voted for Biden. I would vote for Biden again. He has fucked up the Afghanistan thing, and I don't like it at all.
Good, because I think that it's important for us to be able to say, like, yes, I am a liberal, I'm a Democrat. My Democratic president is fucking screwing the pooch on this one.
Like it was obviously trying to get out of a horrible situation that's been 20 years, fucking going on 20 years. And of course, like in a lot of people that vote like I do, including myself, have been pointing out shit like, shouldn't have been there in the first place, things like that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you have to fucking you can't shirk the responsibility. You can't you can't pretend that it wasn't his call at the end of the day, and that maybe we should have gone into this a little better fucking prepared.
Okay, I hate the argument that we shouldn't have been there in the first place. Now, I think you could make an argument that we should never have been there in the first place. They call it the death of empires. I mean, it's like, it's the Wuhan Coronavirus Institute, right? They call it the fucking death of empires. So maybe we should have thought it out a little bit beforehand. But it was a Republican president that got us into Afghanistan. But then we had 8 years of a Democratic president that continued us through Afghanistan.
And the bombing and shit just kept ramping up and fucking,
and then we had 4 more years of a Republican president.
Well, and that's good. We'll just interrupt just a second there, because the Obama thing is important, because I voted for Obama twice, and I liked Obama. I did not like his warmongering bullshit either, though.
No, I didn't either.
He did a lot of shit that was terrible.
Right? We get it, Barry. You don't want to be called pussy.
Yeah.
I always think of Obama. Well, I mean, first of all, I think of him now lovingly.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
I haven't had a
remember competency.
I had a little bit of a man crush on Obama. I mean, just a straight up crush. And I mean, if him and Michelle are whatever. Okay. So, but I had a really hard time with his drone strike program. I had a really hard time with his whistleblower bullshit. I mean, this is on his fucking campaign website. He was talking about how he was going to be how he was going to, open the doors for whistleblowers or whatever. And then when fucking Snowden whistleblows, he fucking chases him relentlessly, as did Biden. And I was like, and then at the last few days of Trump, I was like, I don't know how, but I want to write him a letter and just let him know that pardoning Snowden is going to really piss off Biden. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, you want to snub that fucker? Here's what you do. Pardon Snowden. And I think that would have taken him like 2 seconds to be like, oh, great. Okay, and then
and would have garnered him some goodwill in certain sectors.
And Obama was fucking horrible on immigration. And these are 3 pretty big things that his record was horseshit. But I still really liked him.
God, what if? Isn't it weird?
Oh, and I'll also say that the Affordable Care Act was a blowjob to the insurance industry.
Word.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, the Affordable Care Act. I mean, I understood why it was done, because it
improved something.
It was an attempt to move it out. It actually made Minnesota insurance, because Minnesota was already doing a better job with state health insurance than any other state, other than maybe Massachusetts, where Fancy Pants is from. By that I mean Mitt Romney, and Fancy Pants I mean his magical underwear. Yes. But it actually made Minnesota Care worse.
Yes,
and that sucked.
Yeah.
Where the fuck am I at on this goddamn thing? A rant about Obama. We're talking about Afghanistan. Okay, and then we have Trump, and then Trump says, "Hey, okay, we're going to get out of Afghanistan." And now, so these are the things that I hate about this situation. I hate that liberals are saying, well, it's Trump's fault because he's the one who made the agreement with the Taliban and he set us up for failure, da-da-da-da. Nope. Unacceptable argument.
Yeah, it's his shitty... Yeah, okay, we used his shitty plan. Why would you think that of all the shit that he did, this fucking plan would be worth keeping? Don't give me that bullshit. Stevie did it. No, fucker. Own that shit. Yeah, you should have scrapped that fucking garbage plan. Yeah, we're just gonna. That's not how you can run your presidency. We're just gonna do what Donald Trump thought was right.
Right.
No, that sounds like a bad idea. That failed.
And I mean,
and he got 4 years. He got 4 years, man.
And a good example of being able to change direction is Obama when in Iraq. We had said we were withdrawing in Iraq or whatever, and then shit started to change there, and Obama just flipped and we did the surge, which ended up becoming actually in retrospect a good move. And then they trained up the Israeli special forces in Iraq today is as stable.
Stable-ish?
It's as stable as it's been in a long time. Though, again, so that's kind of another situation where, I mean, Obama totally inherited that problem. But just because you inherit a problem doesn't mean you can be like, well, I didn't start the fire. I just let that fucker burn then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hate,
you inherited it. That means it's yours.
I hate the argument that Trump started it, so it's not Biden's fault. On the other side of it, there's this whole fucking thing about, oh yeah, we're leaving behind billions of dollars of equipment. Okay, and as Pete said, if you talk to anybody who's actually in the military, they'll tell you that that actually
they leave shit behind.
That you leave shit behind because it's cost effective to leave it behind. It is billions of dollars of equipment,
and maybe you disagree with that. I at least wish that they would have turned that shit. Like, don't leave it in good operating condition. But fucking whatever.
So I really enjoy this author Bernard Cromwell, right? And he does lots of historical fiction, and Kyle and I both have read hundreds and hundreds of hours of this guy. I got to tell you, the concept of spiking a gun is not exactly a new concept. All right.
True.
When you
can destroy your cannons.
When you are leaving a battlefield, it is almost never do you get to take the guns with you because they're fucking heavy, right? And that's the same thing that we're facing today. But I'm telling you, and I've saw this on fucking Facebook, and I'm just like, oh my God, I can't talk to stupid people. But they're not leaving behind.
Like, what the fuck were they thinking? They'll never figure it out. Meanwhile, fucking Hakeem is like on YouTube, like, oh, how do I fly a Black Hawk?
Right. It's not as if they're leaving behind the equipment that the Taliban is just going to pick up and use. They spiked the guns, right? I'm assuming they did. I mean, there's got to be one smart general.
Well, again, these are people that do this shit
for
a living, so I'm quite certain that they did what they did in the way that they do it, and that makes
right. It's not like they're just sitting around. They're not like leaving piles of missiles and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and some of our mutual friends on Facebook are like, wait. Joe, you were happy to you want to take away my 30-06, but you're happy to leave them with billions of no, that ain't even how it works,
all
man.
these false equivalencies and shit.
Yes. But I think the biggest tragedy of the Afghanistan thing is the people that served, the Afghanis that served with the U.S. forces in an agreement that they were going to get to leave.
We always do that, though.
We are fucking fucks.
We did it in Vietnam.
I mean, we did it with Cambodians,
did it in fucking,
or with the
Hmong.
And I mean, and we did a horrible job in Vietnam. Horrible job. I mean, but I mean, you would think we could. Okay,
we did it to the Kurds.
Here's the deal.
We do it to everybody.
Like, if you are one thing, it has to be your word. It's the only thing that really, it's not the only thing that really matters, but it's the most important thing. And as a human, as a man, as a nation, you have to hold your word. Your word is your bond. And we're fucking breaking our word left and right as a country, and this is
it doesn't mean
bullshit.
Anything. We won't honor our commitments to our own fucking people. Anybody, any goddamn, any group that thinks they're going to get into bed with us and we're going to treat them better.
But think about that. But think about the United States as a person. All right, if you treat yourself shitty, fucking, you're a piece of shit. But it's you. You treat yourself shitty. But when you treat your friends, when you make a promise to your friends and then you don't hold up to that promise, that makes you a piece of shit. And I, as a American, am feeling like a little bit of a piece of shit on this one. And it's frustrating because what can you as an individual do about it other than, spout crap at the camera? And I just want to say thank you, Shelley, for even like putting me onto this subject, because I, again, don't do a lot of news following. And I had a conversation with Shelley the other day, and she was like, so what about Afghanistan? I was like, we're leaving. You're like, that's about all I know. And she's like, oh bitch, you got to get it. You got to go down there. and I did, and I'm glad I did because I understand the issue much more now. And I'm very disappointed.
We recently had some goofball speaker here in Brainerd who came under the premise of, well, don't have to worry about a wall down south because they're bringing all these damn refugees to the Brainerd area. Now, and this is conspiracy theory crap, and some people tried to record this guy, and they, of course, made the person leave. And, he was trying to promote this refugee resettlement that you understand that LSS has helped with some of that in the past.
I don't know what company you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I've heard of them, and anyway, but it's one of those things that these folks get all up in arms when they don't have the accurate information, and they go nuts, and so they're trying to say that they're going to resettle a bunch of Afghan refugees in Brainerd.
I think that would be great.
But here's it. Well, except that there aren't any jobs and there isn't anything for anybody to do, and our economy sucks, and rental is way too high, and we can't even support ourselves at this point. But the fact of the matter is that like Walls agreed to take like 70, I think, refugees from Afghanistan, and these were people who were working with the United States.
Yeah, no, these are bona fide fucking heroes.
Right. Well, absolutely.
See, the hillbillies around here, I think it would be a lot more palatable for them if we could get some Taliban dudes. Because they basically agree on the same kind. They basically agree on all the core issues.
Key points.
Yeah. Now they might be a little brown for their tastes, but these are real ass kickers, and I know they respect that.
And you know what? They do got them big ass beards.
Yeah.
And if
you don't think those guys will be fucking rocking a goddamn jacked up fucking F-150 in like a minute once they get here,
right. I mean,
you're
seriously.
And they're incredibly adept at subjugating women.
Right. Yeah. Like, how bad are they? I mean, they grow really long beards. They love assault rifles. They're pro assault rifle, right? Super religious. That's a good thing, right? They're misogynistic. That means
these guys
shitty
are
to
like
women.
These guys are like super conservatives.
I think
they're your people.
I think this is it. I think we just bring them all to Hackensack and fucking let them go.
Not these ones though. We got the wrong ones.
Oh yeah, right. Shit. No,
we got the ones
heroes
that worked with us.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
They're not gonna like that.
I'm sorry, guys.
They need the fucking Taliban guys.
Yeah. I love listening to the Jocko Willink podcast. I don't know if you guys ever listen to that, but I don't listen to a ton of it, but he's had a few, a bunch of guys on through the years, and all of them talk about the incredible sacrifice and bravery and true service that the fucking Afghani interpreters and people that fought alongside the U.S. troops. How they just could never have done it without them, and how it is such a different thing to be like, go to war for your country and go to another country and kick some ass because you have better equipment, you have blah blah blah, to be a person who lives in a community where everybody fucking knows you, right, and you are publicly making a declaration against the power that is likely going to replace them when your guys leave. That doesn't mean just that you're gonna die. It means
your family's
fucking family's gonna die. So, shame on you, government. I expect more out of you to do a better job.
I'll agree with you there.
Well, do you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think we should take a break quick, but I don't know a ton about this. I kept seeing this story pop up about General Mark Milley. Milley.
Yeah.
Taking top secret precautions to keep then President Trump's finger off the button. Because the first time I saw it, I dismissed it, but then the more I saw, I was like, this actually happened. Mm-hmm. And basically he was like, this guy's fucking unhinged. We have to do something. And enough people are like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Whew.
So what did they do? Did Trump have a fake football?
it's the precautions that they took are top secret.
Did somebody literally?
We don't know what they did.
I know what they did. Like they had the Secret Service agent carried around a Nerf football, right? And then Trump would be like, okay, give me the football, and then they'd give him the Nerf, and he'd just keep pushing it, and then he didn't understand why North Korea didn't explode.
I was gonna say they fucking like went down to Menards or whatever and got him like a fake button, like don't push that red button, don't push that red button, you push the red button.
I think it's actually the thing from Staples. Remember that that was part of their marketing campaign.
Yeah,
for a while,
that little box.
Yeah, but there is some truth behind that, and I think that there were some people within the administration who, and some of them were the military career people who stuck around because they recognized there was such a threat in the just randomness and impulsiveness that was Donald Trump, that they stuck around simply to protect the country. And for whatever it's worth, I mean, I think those folks who were there were truly doing something admirable, even though it was in a very shitty situation.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one. I can't. Yeah.
All right, should we take 5?
Yeah, let's take 5.
All right,
we'll be right back. Welcome back to Spitballing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matt Taylor here with my good buddy
Kyle Amundsen.
and again we have Pete Charpentier in the house.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So what did you want to talk about? Yeah.
Well, I just had something. So I was watching our last episode, and oddly enough, on the show, I quoted Norm Macdonald.
Oh yeah.
And when and it was from the old like Weekend Update way back when he was on SNL. It was that you ever notice how women that are against abortion are women you wouldn't want to fuck anyway?
Right.
Which is not my experience, but it was a really funny line. So that's so I quote Norm Macdonald, and then a couple of days later, he dies, and I was just thinking about that. I thought that was weird. So it made me.
I forgot that you quoted him, but that was weird that he was in there. I saw.
I mean, how often do I quote Norm Macdonald and reference? I mean, actually, I quote Norm Macdonald all the time, but I very seldom say that's a Norm Macdonald.
Right. And then I saw a post on Facebook that Shelley posted, and it said, and it was Norm Macdonald behind the desk at SNL, and it said, "This just in, I'm dead." and then she said, I think Norm would have liked it. And I was
the least irreverent goodbyes of any celebrity I've ever seen.
I'm okay. It's weird how I can get emotional about stuff. Like, I don't fucking know shit about Norm Macdonald. I mean, watched him, on Weekend Update, but it was neat. And and then I read some of the quotes from Jon Stewart and some of the other guys that said some just really nice shit about the guy. So yeah, it's always cancer's a bitch.
So yeah, I quote him, and then he died. So that made me decide to go with this. This very expensive global warming bullshit has got to stop. Our planet is freezing, record low temps, and our GW scientists are stuck in ice. Donald Trump. America is ready to elect its first African American president, especially one with light skin and no Negro dialect. Mitch McConnell. Just a couple more quotes that I wanted to share with you guys. See if it works.
Well, Kyle, we can only hope that your streak will be intact following this.
If that works, more quotes to come.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are some particularly stupid quotes.
Oh, God, yeah.
Too.
What an interesting superpower that would be.
Right? No shit.
Like,
I heard you've been saying some shit about me. Here's what I heard you said.
Yeah. We'll call you Podcast Man.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So what is that trophy you got there?
Well, this I was going to save this to the end, but
okay. Well, I just
no. By all means, now's as good time as any. So we won an award. This is a trophy for excellence in podcasting, awarded by us. To us.
It's the only way we'll get an award.
Yeah. So it's the first award that we've actually won on the show. We met all the criteria. So no, this is for when we sooner or later, we'll, we like to bounce around. We do it a lot. And our next studio, this will be a fixture.
I that's actually still more prestigious than a daytime Emmy. So.
Damn right.
And we got a daytime Emmy too, which is really weird.
Right.
I guess they just give those things to anybody.
Well, if you're awake during the day, I think you're eligible.
Oh, I am. I should try that sometime. Cool. So I guess the only other thing that I got on my list is we were talking a little bit last week or last time with Howard about some of the end of times scenario stuff, and I sent you a Sam Harris podcast that you've been listening to, and if you guys have not checked out Sam Harris, I really
Big brain on Sam.
yeah, he's got a big brain.
Man.
And as Gibbons, as Dr. Gibbons said, be ready to love him or hate him. And I think that is kind of true. That people, I don't know, but I find him very rational. I find him really interesting. Some people have a hard time with his voice because he's got a kind of almost like a melodic voice that like people find
Kind of lulls you to sleep.
Kind of lulls you to sleep. Which I do not find at all. I listen to many of his podcasts more than once because they're so informative. But he did this one, and it's not a very typical podcast for him. But he did this one with this guy whose name I can't remember. I should have written that down. But he did a TED Talk a while ago about potential end of the world, causes and some solutions about it. And but I had just because Kyle and I and Howard and Darg and all those guys are looking at doing a writing project. Have you heard about this, Pete?
No, I have not.
Yeah, we're trying to do a shared world writing project, and the inspiration for it came from
George R. R. Martin.
George R. R. Martin
and his friends.
and literally his role playing friends.
Yeah, his old gaming group,
which again were all like fantastic writers. They'd get together and they were doing this kind of heroes type role playing game, and then they decided, oh, fuck it, let's just turn this into a world and we'll all write in it. And it's called the Wild Card series, and there's like 23 books, and they've been wildly successful. And frankly, some of them are good. I mean, it's not great, but the idea.
But they're not as bad as most of the books in that like post-apocalyptic genre, which are fucking horrible.
Oh, speaking of post-apocalyptic genres, I've been meaning to talk to you about this. Have you ever heard of the genre solar punk?
Solar punk?
Yeah.
Is that like steampunk but with solar power or what?
Okay, it's probably not a bad.
I don't know. I'm not
it kind of.
I remember the old movie back from the 80s, Solar Babies.
I don't think it has anything to do with it. No. Again,
Not a good movie.
Again, I was listening to this podcast, and they're talking about the writing genre solar punk. And right away I thought of you because from what I have heard about your idea for your story, it kind of fits along those lines. It's a post-apocalyptic positive view. Okay, that's essentially the idea where like shit has gone wrong, but it's kind of solution oriented. Like this is how we're not just surviving the apocalypse, but this is how we're thriving the apocalypse, kind of thing.
Did you and I talk about with your background in psychology? This might did you and I talk about the stuff that they mentioned on that podcast? It Could Happen Here. The thing about people with depression and stuff like that actually kind of thriving. I don't know if thriving is the right word, but people
finding relief
once they're focused on survival and like working towards a common goal with the rest of the group and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of these
I don't
people
know if we talked about it on the podcast, but we both listened to the podcast about It Could Happen Here
a couple times.
Yeah, very interesting. And like
but I'm going to check into some of the books and stuff that he mentioned on that.
Yeah,
because
I think there's a study called the Dresden study, and that was done in World War II. From survivors of the Dresden bombing.
Yeah.
And essentially, in a nutshell, what they found was that people who are experiencing, like it's not just tragedy. It has to be like mass tragedy. It has to be
Yeah.
like Hurricane Katrina or getting bombed or whatever. That people have the tendency to find a real sense of community and they pull together.
Yeah, and purpose. Community and
Yep.
purpose.
And I found it very interesting when they were talking about Katrina and how there were all these reports after Katrina about, like basically just mayhem in the streets and fucking rioting and rapes and so on and so forth. And those reports are just were just
They were like myths, pretty much. Like
myths.
really, all this stuff was really overstated because like even the gangbangers and shit were like chipping in and fucking helping out and working their asses off.
Right.
And this is like that major from the National Guard that was like, yeah, these guys look like thugs. And they were in there working their asses off.
Yeah.
The first ones to fucking grab a stretcher and run if you needed, if they needed
the
help and
line
stuff.
he said was pretty good. Is something like, "Yeah, they look like thugs. I mean, their asses were hanging out, but they were working them off." And I was like, "That's a great line."
And it's an interesting thing to think about too, because I do a lot of self-examination in this last year and a half of COVID, and I mean, generally speaking, I'm a pretty gregarious, person. I've found that I actually don't like being around masses of people as much since I've been kind of working from home and things like. But the one thing that I do recognize in my job, and this has been in every job that I've had from bartending to whatever, is I have a lot of issues with anxiety personally, and when I'm not busy, those can become overwhelming. But when I'm in chaos and trying to solve things, that's where I thrive.
Yeah, when you're idle, like your mind will turn inwards on itself.
Yeah.
I think
that happens with a lot of
that was
people, I think.
part of the problem of why the lockdown was so hard on people, because like, okay, we're faced with this problem, that this enemy, COVID-19, and we want everybody to rally together to do the right thing. I think we could have done that if doing the right thing meant coming together with sticks and hitting them together. Okay,
Sure.
I mean,
I
stupid
hear you.
example, but where
Right.
we can, it's action. You're taking action, right? A call to action. But a call to inaction is very difficult.
Yeah.
So
That
to
makes
say
sense.
the way for you to do
To do your part, to
do your part
participate, is to
not
stay home and
participate.
stay out of shit.
Very difficult for people. Much more difficult to get your mind around, and much more difficult to get where. And like, it was the exact opposite. I don't think that the lockdown and the COVID-19 made people feel less mentally ill, right? Like,
Right.
but I do think that if, in the case there was a global civil war, or if there was a second American Civil War, or there was like real conflict, and once like government, pretty much failed, many people, I do think, would find new meaning in their life, being in that struggle. Okay, I know I've talked about this before, but I love this point. Quite a while now ago, I was reading this book, and it was not a good book. I can't even recommend it, but it had a really good part. And it was kind of a stupid book about aliens and alien invasion and whatever, and basically the world crumbles and whatever. And there's this kind of side story about this couple, and in the beginning, this couple, like, the guy is going to make a drug deal, right? Because they're fucking gonna lose their house and whatever, and he's going to make this drug deal, and it's his way, his basically, he's just like, I have no other way to make any money. I'm gonna make this drug deal, and he ends up getting robbed, and it goes completely south, and he's just like completely destitute. Now he's got to go home to his young wife and explain to her that he fucking lost the last of their nest egg, and he's just fucked. And then the world ends, and
Civilization ends.
Civilization ends. Yeah, like it crumbles, and they end up finding themselves in in some rich guy's house with there's no electricity or whatever, and they've got their little sustainable farm going, and they're like doing all of this stuff, and they're working outside doing all this shit, and he says to her, God, I'm really happy, and she goes, yeah, so am I. And he goes, well, that's funny, we had to wait for the world to end to be happy. And she goes, I don't think we did. And I was like, oh, it's so poignant, right? Because it's like you don't need to have that tragedy to come together as a community.
Yeah,
you could have achieved what they had for nothing. But it's something else. It's something to put yourself in a situation of struggle rather than have struggle put upon you.
Thrust upon you. Yeah.
I do think it's part of why jiu-jitsu, or why mountain biking, or why throwing giant weights around are so important to us, because it is struggle, and without it's it's not the same. It's not the same as being in a fucking going through Hurricane Katrina.
Not a survival type situation.
But it is kind of. I don't know that your brain knows the difference, right?
Well, if it doesn't, what does know the difference?
I don't think physiologically there is much difference. I mean, if I have some monster on top of me trying to rip my fucking arm off, and it's safe, I know I'm not going to. All I have to do to not have him rip my arm off is to give him a little tappy tap, and he'll let me go. I know that, right? But I got giant Cody.
Was that a jiu-jitsu reference? Because I thought we went to masturbation again.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say tap tap anymore without thinking about broccoli. Speaking of Cody, that fucking giant came in yesterday into the bar, and I don't know, they're just sitting there or whatever. And I told him, hey, you get unruly. You gotta throw yourself out. I stole the Rob Lewis line. It's like, what is the line from The Princess Bride? Gotta get the something.
Oh, the Goon Squad?
Is it the Goon Squad?
Yeah, something about getting the Goon Squad. And the guy says, you are the Goon Squad.
Yeah. Fezzik.
I'm just going to say about I think what you're talking about in terms of this, life and happiness and what makes us happy and think, I look, recently I was on the Paul Bunyan Trail biking, and I ran into a gentleman on the trail, and
anybody get hurt?
No, we actually had been stopped, and we were conversing. Turns out to be Brian Nystrom of Nystrom and Associates.
Oh, okay.
Now, I actually worked for Nystrom and Associates at one point, doing community mental health work, and it was interesting. So I was talking about some of the advocacy stuff that I've done in the past, and I started talking about approaching things from a housing first perspective, in that you need to lay the base of that in order to address other issues of people. So if you start talking about basic needs, and he said he threw out, and I didn't know who he was at the time. He said, "Now you sound like Maslow," talking about the hierarchy of needs. Yep. And I'm like, well, this guy clearly understands something about mental health. But I talk about the fact that if you get your basic needs met. And if everybody has, this is where my lefty liberal stuff comes in, is that everybody has their basic needs met, then we can start working together as a community and as a society, and working on those levels and trying to achieve that self-actualization that is sort of theoretical, because I don't know that anybody ever gets there. But it's this concept that really people always talk about pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's awesome, but let's just make sure everybody's got some fucking boots.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think what you're talking about with this book and this post-apocalyptic thing is that shelter was taken care of. So it's about making sure that you feed yourself and all this. And as long as it's not like a ridiculous struggle every day, you can sort of...
And even if it is a ridiculous struggle every day, as long as you have a community.
Yeah.
That's, I think, really what it boils down to. I think we as humans can endure incredible struggle in a community.
Well, because we don't need all of the bullshit devices and TVs and all these distractions that we have in the world. A lot of times, those are the things that produce the anxiety that we all contend with
Agreed.
on some level, you know. And I mean, one of the things that I found again in this year and a half of kind of doing my thing from home and being isolated and having to really be with myself for the first time in a really fucking long time is that, you know, some of that stuff I need to let go of. And is chasing after some bullshit making me happy, or what am I doing to be content with my life? What am I doing to be happy for me? Part of it was addressing some health issues that I've experienced as I've gotten a little bit older, you know, and as I've addressed some of those health issues, I've done some things that have made me feel better. And, you know, so it's become more important to me to be healthy and happy than it has been about trying to earn more money and or have that other thing, or all those other things, you know. And I think as a society we always we're not always, but a lot of people get caught up in chasing after things that may or may not be achievable. And I posted a quote recently on Facebook where it was like, it's not the things that you do, it's have you made a difference in the world. And the one thing that I can be confident in saying is that I have helped some people out in this lifetime. Yeah. You know, and that makes me happy.
Yep.
You know, and I'd like to continue to do that for as long as, I mean, here's the thing. I work so that I can live. I do not live to work.
Yeah.
You know, like if I didn't have to get a paycheck, I would still do things to help people.
Right.
But I would do things for myself.
Right.
As well. You know, and I think finding that balance, and that's one of those things that I've found being able to work from home, because I have a half-hour each-way commute, which is not that big a deal. I mean, there are people who live in urban areas that do considerably more than that. But what I've taken during this time of being able to work from home is that hour that I used to use driving, I dedicate to exercise. And that has made a tremendous difference in the quality of my life.
Yeah. No, I think that's great.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into Spitballing. Unfortunately, I had just a titch of a technical glitch, and I lost the very end of this conversation. You didn't really miss much. We just talked a little bit more, and then we wrapped it up. So I had a lot of fun talking to Pete today, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. We will see you next time.
I got the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. You know I'm feeling so much better I could cakewalk into town. I woke up this morning feeling so good, you know I laid back down again. Throw your big leg over me, mama, I just might not feel this good again. My baby, oh my baby, I love the way she walks. When my girl gets sleepy, I love the way she baby talks. My work done got scarce, honey, all my work, it done got hard. I spent the whole day stealing chickens, mama, from the rich folks' yard. Got the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. Now I'm feeling so much better I could cakewalk into town. I wanna go on a picnic in the country, mama, and stay all day. I don't care if I don't do nothing, just while my time away. I got the blues time, it put my face in a permanent frown. You know I'm feeling so much better, I could cakewalk into town.